Investors, welcome back to Green Money Momentum. I'm your host, Trevor, and we are here for our weekly preparation live stream. What we do every single Sunday, 30 minutes before the stock market opens for the overnight session. Now we have officially already seen the futures start to get kicked off, and we got some crazy key points to go through here in just a second. But before we get into this daily talk of stock, everything we could expect, looking at the economic calendar, all of that, I just wanted to read a passage out of this book, which is called Trading in the Zone, because right now we are seeing a ton of crazy headlines. We are seeing so much craziness within the world. And I know some, especially those on the bullish side of the markets, can be feeling very negative with everything that has happened most recently. So I just wanted to read this passage right here, because we are going to be going over a ton of different, economic news, a ton of different headlines that have happened recently. We're going to be going through technical analysis, all of that. But I want to read this right here because, as I always say, this is never financial advice, just my opinion. I never claim to know exactly what is going to happen. And we always do these live streams just to prepare for what we may expect will happen. So I like this out of this book. Again, it is called Trading in the Zone, and it says, the instant you either decide or assume you know what's going to happen next, you will automatically expect to be right. However, what you know, at least at the rational level of thinking, can only take into consideration your unique past, which may not have any relationship to what is actually happening from the market's perspective. At that point, any market information that is not consistent with your expectation has the potential to be defined and interpreted as painful. To avoid experiencing the pain, your mind will automatically compensate with both conscious and subconscious pain avoidance mechanisms for any differences between what you expect and what the market is offering. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at everything the market is offering. And when we do talk about the major headlines right now, of course, and this is why I titled this stream today, the U.S. and Iran has not came to a negotiation. The big headlines, just yesterday, while President Trump was at UFC, we saw J.D. Vance go out and try to come up with a resolution with Iran, but the negotiations were unsuccessful, and right now still no deal between Iran and the United States, which of course does cause more worry around the Strait of Hormuz. And we have been seeing recently a lot of other countries outside of America having a real crisis shock when it comes to everything that is going on. We have seen some videos online circulating of other countries such, out in Southeast Asia, where it's like, people can't get gas. There are long lines to get gas, and overall a supply and demand shock happening from everything going out in Iran currently. So all of that is still on the table, with the deal not officially being secured, with J.D. Vance going out to the Middle East most recently. Again, a supply and demand shock happening right now, which is very concerning because we just started to see how some of this could affect inflation most recently with the higher gas prices, the higher oil prices. So U.S. inflation tripled last month on record spike in gas prices, and the price spike was overwhelmingly driven by spiraling energy costs from the chokehold that Iran has on global oil supply. Gasoline rose by a record 21% this last month, and with this we also saw frustration with these higher prices pushed consumer sentiment to a historic low, below anything recorded during the Great Recession or the COVID pandemic. So right now, consumers are not feeling happy with everything that we are seeing. And of course, it is this way because inflation has been skyrocketing for many years now, basically since 2020, even though inflation for some time was starting to come down a little bit. Prices are still very elevated with everything we have seen during this last decade since the 2020s really started to get kicked off. And what's crazy about all the inflation that we have seen in the pipeline here in 2026, we may be seeing that same playbook played once again, because what happened in 2020, getting a little tongue twisted here, what happened in 2020 was supply and demand shock overall. We saw a lot of businesses shut down. The overall supply and demand got really affected when it came to supply chains, everything like that. And that was because of the pandemic. Now we are seeing a similar situation with oil, and this is because of the war. And if we're just talking about chains that are being messed up, well, you could already see that China is to ban sulfuric acid exports as the Iran war hits the supply. So China has indicated that it will halt exports of sulfuric acid from May, hitting metals and fertilizer industries already strained by raw material bottlenecks resulting from the Iran war. So supply and demand right now, a lot of bottlenecks that are happening because of the bottleneck of the Strait of Hormuz, which has recently been having a lot go on out there with Iran closing it, now with the US getting involved, everything like that, everything that is going on with the Middle East. And let's take a look. I have some other articles here that I want to get to, and then we'll show the futures and how those have opened up also. But also, we did see GDP recently come in with a big zero. The U.S. economy grew by a sluggish 0.5% in the fourth quarter. So GDP already looking ugly before all of this has happened with Iran. And just recently, we started to see the effects in the CPI with what is happening out with the Middle East. So when it comes to the macros right now, things overall are looking pretty ugly. Now, when we do look at the major indexes of the S&P and the NASDAQ, we have here on screen the SPY and the triple Qs. Both are still technically looking bullish. I mean, we are right back to the zones that we were at during this time of consolidation. So we did have this big drop most recently, getting into correction territory, but then we've had this gap up most recently. So we have gapped above the 200-day and slightly above the 50-day moving average on the SPY. So now let's take a look at how the official futures have opened, because as I was saying most recently, and with the technical analysis that we are seeing with the S&P and the triple Qs, and again, this is why I started with that book here, because I'm just looking at everything objectively right now, right? So we have had a recent bullish push within the markets, and we could potentially go higher. But the macros right now are overall looking pretty ugly. And what we may have just seen is a lower high formed in the major indexes. On the SPY here, we could see that if we get rejected at this level, this could potentially be a lower high, and gaps are typically meant to be filled. So we could come back down, but we could also continue to shoot more bullish. But overall, what I have been saying when it does come to the recent movements that we have been seeing in the markets, I have been telling investors to remain cautious and just to have a level head with everything that is going on. Don't overtrade, don't over leverage. Just I've kind of been in a wait and see approach myself, because recently, in terms of technical analysis, oil got very overextended. Then last Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, we saw what looked like it was going to be a ceasefire between Iran and the United States, but that has already been violated. And again, JD this weekend saying that there has not been a resolution between these two. So we are once again seeing oil shoot back up now at $105. And when we do look at the long-term technical analysis with oil, we are in an overall uptrend. So we have been making some higher lows and lower highs within oil. And then when we do look at how the major indexes have opened up, so oil has opened up very green here, up by 9%. Once again, 105 for oil. When we do look at the S&P, the ES, that has started here in the red, so down by 1.20. And then when we do look at the NASDAQ, the NQ, Currently, the NASDAQ also having a drop here. So overall, in terms of futures, we have seen the major indexes push down. We have seen oil push up. And let's take a look here at the hard metals. Let's see how the hard metals are doing. Silver also pushing down by 3%. Long term, I am very bullish on the hard metals on silver. So it is great to see silver continue to drop. And as the price continues to decrease in the hard metals, I will definitely look at picking up some silver and some gold. So both of those right now being shot here in the futures as well. We will see the official overnight market open up here in about 20 minutes. And so very interesting where we have opened up in terms of the futures. Now, looking at this upcoming week in terms of earnings, we may have more fear, uncertainty, and doubt on the table because this week is going to be a big week for the banks as we have Goldman Sachs reporting on Monday, JP Morgan on Tuesday, BlackRock, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and then on Wednesday, it does continue with Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and then on Thursday, we have Charles Schwab. So we do have a lot of the different banks reporting this upcoming week. It'll be interesting to see what is in their earnings reports, to see how the credit loss provisions are going, to see how loan growth is going, and just what their overall guidance is going for the future. Right now, again, a lot of pressure within the economy because of the barely elevated rates that we have from the Federal Reserve. Again, there is so much pressure for them to cut rates, but really it is just barely at the 3% mark. So rates are already low, but we have just seen most recently, even with the really low rates that we have, all of these different companies, the overall economy still wants rates to come down even more. Again, when we talk about 2020, this is a problem stemming all the way from 2020, because in 2020 we had the pandemic, and then there was a lot of supply and demand shock that happened. The overall economy was in a lot of turmoil, and then the Federal Reserve stepped in. They did what is considered a Fed put, dropped rates all the way down to 0%. We saw a lot of stimulative monetary policy. We also got those stimulus checks from the government, and with all of that, we saw such a time period with such stimulative, monetary policy. We saw so much cash injected into the system. And then since then, the Fed has really started to do some QT, recently trying to reverse back to QE. But now we have this big crisis going on with the Middle East. So it's going to be interesting to see what has to happen next from here, because the Fed overall was looking to do more quantitative easing. What they really wanted to do is to do it slowly, doing just quarter cuts at a time. But then all of this kicked off. They have just been remaining stagnant, but there is even some talks of some potential rate hikes in the air, especially with inflation looking so high most recently. So I do believe we could see a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt this week from the bank earnings. And then when we do look at the economic calendar, we do have more around inflation this week, I do believe, this time for the producers, as we do have the PPI numbers. So we have existing home sales on Monday, probably not going to come in too great. We have PPI on Tuesday. We have some import prices on Wednesday. On Thursday, we have more around the labor market. We have the initial jobless claims, which, as we know, the government loves to cook these statistics. So likely you're going to see some type of beat when it comes to the initial jobless claims, probably less than expected. They're going to come in, they're going to pump the numbers towards the positive. And then in the future, you will see these likely revised down. So that's what we have in terms of the earnings calendar, and then also the economic calendar coming up. And let's also remember, in terms of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, also, we do still have a government shutdown happening. This is a partial government shutdown. And so this has been happening now for 55 days. That is crazy. This was 11 hours ago. 55 days, this partial government shutdown has been happening. So we've been having a government shutdown happening. We have been having war happening. We have been having high inflation going on. And then when we do look at terms of technical analysis, in terms of technicals right now looking very weak. When we do look at Bitcoin, which some could see as a leading indicator on the markets, we did get shot down in February, technically to a spot where it is an oversold reversal. But overall, the candlestick chart, the actual price action has been very weak. And what we could possibly be seeing in Bitcoin is a bear flag where we are seeing a lot of stagnant sideways movement and then a further drop down. And then when we do look at the major indexes of the S&P and the triple Qs, the NASDAQ, the same could be said, where we may possibly be seeing that lower high. And this could just technically be a dead cat bounce, or if you've been caught in the sell-off, it could be seen as the rich guy buyout, where you take this opportunity to get out before things get too bloody. But again, that is just going over all the macroeconomic data that we have in front of us. Again, let's remember that the markets can be irrational. So just because we are seeing all of this turmoil within the economy doesn't mean that the markets also can't go higher. And that's where I say right now we are sitting in a spot kind of where things are unpredictable. We are in this time period currently when we look at the markets where right now so much is going off of what the president says on Truth Social. So it still does matter your technical fundamental analysis. But I mean, when we look at what happened last Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, that is when you really saw this massive pump up within the markets. But now let's just see, because technically that kind of was a false headline. There really was no ceasefire. Let's see if the markets panic and we do see more of a sell-off. I was seeing even some talk about there potentially being Black Monday tomorrow. So let's see how the markets officially open up here in about 14 minutes. Let's see how assets are looking. Again, when it comes to the futures right now, oil is up while the major indexes and the hard metals are currently down. Now let's take a look at the chat. That is basically all I have to say for this upcoming week and what to expect. Let me go through my headlines here. Let me see if there's anything else that I missed. Of course, like I said, GDP looking sluggish, currently low. We have the government shutdown. Also, I thought this was interesting. So recently we got this post from the president, the world's most powerful reset. And if you are into conspiracies, there is the talk about 2030 being the Great Reset. And so let's see if, this is part of the Great Reset. Again, a lot is happening right now, a lot of geopolitical tension. We are seeing crazy things when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, which it looks like Donald Trump also, he pinned this Truth Social post. So let's see exactly what he has to say. And then guys, I will get to the live chat here. So thank you to everybody who is here currently. But Donald Trump did put this earlier on Truth Social. Also, I got to say, I am pretty hyped. I got my coffee today, so I am excited. I got some caffeine in me. It is a great day overall. But Donald Trump said that Iran promised to open the Strait of Hormuz and they knowingly failed to do so. This caused anxiety, dislocation, and pain to many people and countries throughout the world. They say that they put mines in the water, even though all of their Navy and most of their mine droppers have been completely blown up. They may have done so, but what ship owner would want to take the chance? There is a great dishonor and permanent harm to the reputation of Iran and what's left of their leaders. But we are beyond all of that. As they promised, they better begin the process of getting this international waterway open and fast. Every law in the book is being violated by them. I have been fully debriefed by Vice President JD, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner on the meeting that took place in Islamabad through the kind and very competent leadership of Field Marshal and Prime Minister of Pakistan. They are very extraordinary men and continuously thank me for saving 30 to 50 million lives in what would have been a horrendous war with India. I always appreciate hearing that. The amount of humanity spoken of is incomprehensible. The meeting with Iran began early in the morning and lasted throughout the night, close to 20 hours. I could go into great detail and talk about how much there has been gotten, but there is only one thing that matters. Iran is unwilling to give up its nuclear ambitions, in all caps lock. In many ways, the points that were agreed two are better than us continuing our military operations to conclusion. But all of those points don't matter compared to allowing nuclear power to be in the hands of such volatile, difficult, unpredictable people. Well, you could say the same about the United States. We have a lot of nuclear weapons, but even ourselves, we are a bit unpredictable. Now, let's take a look here at the chat. Looks like we have our moderator here, Eric Poley. As you guys can see, he has a wrench here. He has been a long-term subscriber of this channel. Eric, thank you for being here once again. I appreciate you as always for joining us. We have another long-term subscriber here. We have Stephanie Diaz saying, paint the town red. I think you are referring to Doja Cat. Let me see. Let me pull that up on Spotify. This is a bear song. So if you want to be bearish on the markets and you want to be vibing with some bearish music, you could have the song from Doja Cat. I'll only play this for a second because YouTube loves to hit me with copyright if you play some audio. But that song is Paint the Town Red. And then Stephanie says, what's up, Green Momentum family? Well, we are just here doing our weekly live stream. As always, I see that we have 8 here in the live chat. So to all of you who are here, thank you, as always, for joining me. We also have another subscriber here, Two Wheels Pursuit, saying, good evening, Two Wheels. Good evening. Great to see you here, as always. After talking with JD Vance for 21 hours, Iran said, just keep bombing us, please. Yeah, again, things right here in the short term still not being resolved. And guys, I'm just trying to, there we go. Just trying to put myself up so you could see me. It's so funny when it comes to Stream East. This is where I do my live streams. Sometimes they have these comments real small on the left, and other times they take up the whole screen. So another day, another trade says, good afternoon, Green Money. Good afternoon. Another day, another trade. Great to see you here. Cheers. Or chairs, I should say. Watch out for the price of fertilizer. Wheat prices just keep getting lower. Love the monopoly time. They almost look like American money. Hey, that's why I wore that, because, you know, there is not much difference from a monopoly money and the US dollar. Both are fiat. And I like that you mentioned that, Stephanie, because I did just want to throw in this little bit of a wrench for you guys. I'd be curious to hear all of your opinion on this. As I always say with these weekly live streams, or with all of our stock live streams, I love talking about the stock market, you know, macroeconomics, everything like that. But I also like to get a bit off topic sometimes. And it was so funny because I did get this Monopoly tie, which I do love, by the way. This Monopoly tie is awesome. But I would be curious to hear, what do you guys think? Did Mr. Monopoly used to have a monocle? Many believe that Mr. Monopoly did have a monocle, but apparently he has never had a monocle. This goes into the, what is it? It's the, there's a theory behind it. It's called the, oh my gosh, I can't, the Mandela effect. This is one of those Mandela effects. So drop in the comments. Let me know. Do you think that he did have a monocle? Do you remember him with a monocle, or do you think it was always the way he is there on the right, never having a monocle? Are our eyes lying to us? Also, I had this tab open too that I wanted to show to you guys, and that is that right now Coachella 2026 is going on. And I just think that this is funny right now that this is happening because, you know, again, talking about like how we started with the book, you know, being objective, just having an open mind on everything. It's like right now you are seeing so much chaos in the world. So many are panicking, thinking that this is the absolute end of the world. I mean, many are thinking that we might go to World War III. We're seeing an energy crisis going on. We're seeing a stock market that has been being beaten up for many, many months. And we are seeing very crazy moments happening out in Iran, seeing bombing, all of that. So much in the world right now is looking negative, but this is a big world. And it's so funny, while all of this is going on, so is Coachella. So while some are living a life of fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now, whether you're out in the Middle East and you're worried about being bombed, or whether you're out here in America, you're worried about your portfolio, or you're worried about the price of oil or energy, there are some out there who are just vibing and dancing right now, doing some drugs out in Coachella. So I just thought that was funny to pull up right now with everything that we are seeing going on, because that's a good reminder. You know, when I was younger, I used to really put narratives into my head, I would think, oh my God, there's all of this going on. The markets have to go down. We have, such an incredibly high amount of debt in the system. Oh my God, this is happening, this, that. And then the markets, shoot right back up. And it's like all that fear, uncertainty, and doubt that I was feeling, or thoughts of what was happening in the world, was only subjective to some of the world, or what I was seeing with my eyes. But this is a big world. So it's like where some are struggling so much because of the cost of oil, others are celebrating because they are making a ton of money. So again, always good to just have a big perspective on everything that is going on, and not to be too bearish or too bullish, because again, like, when you just look at the major indexes, which again, we'll get the overnight market officially opening here in 5 minutes. It's like, if you put, I think it's good to be objective and look at both sides of the coin. Like, looking at where we are at currently right now, I could definitely see this being a higher low, and I could see us once again filling this gap. But I could also see a scenario like last year where we just continue to shoot up, leaving this gap behind. Again, this is a game of variance, so anything is possible. I am not ruling out both scenarios. This could be a time period where it's like all those who are focused on the macros get burned because technical analysis proves that, say the macros don't matter, the markets shoot back up, or those who are permabulls may be getting burned on the markets where we see the macros do indeed matter, and we do see a sell-off, and we do see this gap being filled. So again, always have a clear mind, and I would say just never be too bearish, never be too bullish. The Lord's lettuce. And then you saw a guy at Costco today. He had a red Omicron, and it gave me the chills. That is so funny, Stephanie. Silver is going to roll over. Let's take a look here at iShares. Well, actually, we could just look at the silver futures, because right now those are open. So let's take a look here at the silver futures. Again, down by 3.53%. In terms of technical analysis, let me get the comment here off screen so you guys could see that MACD there. We are right in the middle in terms of the RSI, and we have been chopped significantly on the MACD. I do agree we could continue to trail sideways, or possibly even go back down to this 200-day MA, but the hard metals could be seen as a safe haven, and with everything that is going on right now, I could see another push back up in the hard metals. I mean, we have had quite the sell-off from where we were at back in January. So I do believe that we could push higher again in the hard metals. We'll just have to see. Let me get back to the chat here. I sold most of my silver already. Well, that is great, Two Wheels. I hope you sold closer to the top. Silver has looked very bullish most recently. That is not a bad sell considering how flat silver was for so many years. I mean, this has been some hyper bullish momentum most recently. So not a bad sell. And then Norris, great to see you here in the live stream once again. Let's take a look at BATL if my screen wants to comply here. So this is Batalon Oil. Look at that push up that we have had most recently. Wow, that is actually looking pretty appetizing in terms of technicals, possibly an oversold reversal coming there. And then Eric says, Kraken Robotics is where you want your money. Yes, I know you've been very bullish on Kraken for quite some time, Eric. And I like that you have gotten me into Charles Schwab. So thank you again for that. Eric finding some things that Stephanie is saying funny. And then Norris says, I haven't been in the markets for 2 weeks. I've been researching on SpaceX. I'd be curious to hear what you have found with your research. Let us know. And then, yes, Stephanie, I spin a dreidel to determine if I'm going to buy or sell. Market fatigue, completely understandable, Norris. I mean, for all of 2026, this has been a very tiring year, I must say. I have felt some market fatigue myself. I mean, it's like, I miss the old times. I'll show a clip here in a little bit. I thought it would be funny to show, but I miss when things in terms of the overall economy and the macros were looking better. Like last year when we had Elon Musk at the White House with Donald Trump, those were some fun times, right? When they were out on the White House lawn, Trump was looking at buying the Tesla. Everything at that time was so positive, was so much fun. At least for me, I was having a fun time during that time period. But now it's like we have this war going on. We have high inflation. It's for sure been exhausting, especially while a lot of assets have been being shot. And then U.S. battleships block Strait of Hormuz. And then, let's see again. The futures have already opened up negative. Let's see how the S&P and the NASDAQ, the SPY, and the triple Qs. Oh, I was just going to say, let's see how they open up. And to no surprise, opening up in the red here, a big red candlestick. Again, if you are objective with the markets, again, this is just the game right here. These things happen. If you are too bullish, you may be feeling very fearful. I mean, look at that. That is a big red candlestick right there, taking away all the gains from April 9th, at least here in the overnight session. These are some pretty big red candlesticks right now. The triple Qs down by 1%. The same to be said with the S&P. Quite some crazy movements we have already seen here in the overnight. Let's take a look at different assets. Let's see how different assets are moving right now. First, let's take a look here at Robinhood stock, if my thing wants to load here. And then Nora says, Eric, will this hurt oil? Oil, the nectar of the gods. Buy a tourniquet for Monday. It's going to be a bloodbath. Yeah, Eric, some do believe that tomorrow will be Black Monday. So let's see. Oil will surge. Again, oil for the futures market already at 105 here. For the futures. So oil is already pushing up. Gosh, I hate when my internet goes slow here. Let me close some tabs now that we've officially been here for a while. Again, we got the Monopoly tie. So let me know, guys, did Mr. Monopoly used to have a monocle? Let me know what you think. I'm going to close some tabs here. Try to get this stream going. I don't know why it is not loading. There we go. Finally. Okay, so let's see how Robinhood has opened up. Ooh, Robinhood. Oh my goodness. Woo! In the red there. Let's take a look here at Applied Digital. Applied Digital, oh boy, at 24.72. My goodness. Let's take a look here at Quantum. Let's see how QBTS is opening up. Again, as I have been saying most recently, guys, a lot of the assets that I talk about here on this channel, I am bullish for the long term. I really do like Quantum for, everything, all the problems that quantum computing is set to solve. But here in the short term, I do not have a lot of faith in the small caps, nor in AI and technology, just while we are seeing all of this geopolitical tension. Once all of this smooths over, I could see the asset classes around small caps, technology, and AI being a lot more bullish. But here in the short term, not looking too pretty. Again, a big red candlestick in Applied Digital. And guys, I'm just laughing because I'm looking at this objectively, not feeling too much emotion going either way. Wow, QBTS back down to 13.97. And then high two wheels, I have some shares in Battle. Got it in at 430. Oil already at 96.78, 96.80. Woot woot. Bitcoin down. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Yeah, I agree. I think that Bitcoin, these are the Bitcoin futures. I want to see actual spot Bitcoin. Why is it just showing me Bitcoin futures? That is so strange. There we go. Bitcoin. Let's take a look at how Bitcoin is doing. Yeah, Bitcoin looking ugly again. We may be seeing a bear flag in Bitcoin. I could definitely be seeing a drop again. Again, the technicals not looking too pretty here in the short term. Yep, XRP2. Let's take a look here at XRP. Yeah, XRP looking very bearish here in the short term. Look at these levels with XRP. My goodness, the downtrend that has been happening since July of 2025. Very ugly quickly. And again, things not looking too positive. I could definitely see another drop in XRP going even lower, potentially eating up some of this uptick right there. Here's a crypto I was bullish on in the past. I saw a lot of gains in Solana. I got to say, this was a perfect trade for me. I got into Solana right around $10 to $20. I rode up most of the momentum, and then I started selling out in 2024, right when I started this YouTube channel. So I kind of shifted from being a lot in the crypto markets to more the actual US stock market. And so I was selling out of my Solana during that time, and such great sells that those were. We have not seen Solana return back to the points where I was selling at back in 2024. So the overall crypto asset class has been looking pretty ugly here through all of 2025 and to begin 2026. Mandela effect, monocle. I agree. I remember the Monopoly man having the monocle. Again, if you just joined us here in the live stream, what we're talking about here is I have a awesome Monopoly tie. Look at that. That is a awesome tie. And we were talking about how the Monopoly man has the monocle. You know, so many of us remember him having the monocle, but apparently he never had the monocle. So some of those Mandela effects, Stephanie does agree. Oh yeah, he did. Monocle. Wow, we are all on the same page here. Jack White and Bia, only two worth it at Coachella. If I have to see one more mosque being built, I will cringe. Over 1 billion Muslims can't be wrong. I believe there will be a huge escalation of the war soon. Yeah, I agree with you, Two Wheels. When we do look at what recently happened in terms of the major indexes, and again, I will say this publicly, knowing that I could be wrong and we could continue to shoot up. Again, I would like to be overall more bullish on the markets, but I do believe that this big rip that we saw most recently around this ceasefire, which has already been violated, I do expect for this to get sold off. I do believe that this is going to be a higher low, and we are going to see this gap get filled and go back down to the 200-day MA. Again, in terms of technicals, it's like we had this massive gap up. We've also became a bit elevated on the relative strength index, and we had this massive reversal on the MACD. But again, this was really off of just a Truth Social post, what the president said about, this war, it's going to end, all of that, the ceasefire, when really none of that has even been known to be true. So really just a false headline, a false article, a false promise from our president. I could see this being eaten up, but again, anything is possible with the markets, and we could see this rally continue, and that would piss off a lot of people that follow the macros. Again, the macros right now are looking ugly. We are seeing inflation high. We are seeing a weak labor market. We are seeing rising energy costs. But again, at any time, the markets can be irrational. But in my opinion, I do believe that the macros are in support here, and I do believe that we will go back down in the markets. Again, we just saw a high CPI report for March, and the war really just began most recently. Imagine how April's numbers are going to come in for inflation. Let's say hypothetically, if the war ended this exact second, if all of a sudden there was peace in the Middle East and everything was resolved because of the bottleneck, the supply and demand shock that has been going on, this still causes a lot of long-term problems. This war has just begun, and we've already seen so many problems happen across the globe. A lot of other countries are being hit a lot harder than America right now, those who really depend on the oil from the Middle East. And so this could just be the beginning to a long draw of bigger effects, and really just a chain of one thing after the next. I hope things get better, but right now consumer sentiment is at a historic low. Now, when we do talk about the Federal Reserve, we are supposed to get Kevin Warsh in the place of Jerome Powell in May, but let's also remember that, he is also a banker. He is also a part of the Federal Reserve, and although he is supposed to be Trump's boy, and he is expected to cut again with everything that is happening right now. Even the pressure from the president, we'll see if that could, influence Kevin Warsh. But this is a committee here, and overall, the Federal Reserve not looking like they are going to cut anytime soon, especially if we see inflation continue to soar up. So really, where I started to get a bit more cautious with the markets, I was remaining very bullish for some time because the overall macros were looking positive until we got this war that happened. And then also when we did have the last FOMC rate decision with Jerome Powell, overall coming out very hawkish and shooting expectations of any rate cuts anytime soon. And again, this was 3 weeks ago. Things have even gotten worse since that point. There's a 1% chance that the Fed does hike rates here in 16 days. I am not expecting for them to hike rates. Again, the Federal Reserve, does not want to do that, but if things continue to get worse, that could always be on the table. So could be a Fed put where they got to come in and do some instant QE, but then that could really spark inflation. So right now, the Federal Reserve is quite pinned. Let's take a look here at the comments again. Man, you guys are showing a lot of activity today, so I do appreciate you all for being here. Give me a second, guys. Let's see. Hi, Two Wheels. Everyone is introducing themselves. I came here to paint the town red. Coachella Music Festival in California. Eric, what is Coachella? Eric says that is a musical festival in California. Oil's going up, baby. Ooh, thank you. Definitely had a monocle. BBAI down to 324. Yeah, that was one asset that we didn't look at when we were opening up here. So let's see how BBAI has reacted to what we just saw with the overnight markets opening. So yeah, BBAI getting shot once again down to 320 again, with the overall macros looking very ugly. With BBAI being a small cap, I could continue to see Big Bear AI get shot here in the short term, falling under many different levels of support and resistance. We had a consolidation zone here for quite a while with an upwards bullish trend, but again, falling out of trend like many different assets in the markets right now. With the macros looking so ugly in the short term, I don't have a lot of faith in the small caps, but I will say exactly what I have been saying most recently. I have been doing some short-term shorting on the markets, and so some shorts going in and out, and even most recently I did do a put finally. So I did a lot of options contracts. I did a lot of calls in 2025, which did really produce a lot of ROI. And I just did a short most recently on Hood, on Applied Digital, and then also on QBTS. So I'm a bit excited with what we are seeing. Again, these are shorts that are short term, so it's not like I'm betting the whole farm on that. But while we are seeing some bleeding in the markets and some overall down trends, as they say, the trend is your friend. And so I could expect to see some more bleeding. And if we do continue to see that bleeding, well, I want to take advantage of that. Are we still in a winter, in a crypto winter? Yeah, I would say so, Norris. And to be honest with you, I am bullish on crypto for the long term. I do believe that we are still going into the mass adoption into cryptocurrency, especially when we do look at the Genius Bill and the Clarity Act, which is to be passed here sometime very soon, hopefully. But even with that being said, honestly, I could see, the Clarity Act will change things in the long term. I could even see here in the short term, the Clarity Act just being false hope for crypto holders. I could see, again, when we just look at the blue chip of all cryptos, Bitcoin, I could see this just being another bear flag, and I could see us possibly going lower. Again, this is just reactions to the macros. Again, anything is possible. So, we could always push up as well. But again, when we do look at the other technicals on Bitcoin, it's like, We're right in the middle on the relative strength index. We have been pushing up on the MACD, but despite having these push-ups on these two indicators, let me get this off screen, we are still looking very weak in terms of actual price action with Bitcoin and most of the crypto market. And Palantir down to 126.50. Yeah, Palantir getting shot here. Palantir having a very rough Friday. It looks like Palantir is actually one of the few stocks that have opened up here in the green. Well, it looks like they had their initial red drop with the rest of the markets, but here having some green candlesticks. In terms of long-term technical analysis with Palantir, this is a great example how we have broken out of trend in many different assets. For a long time, we had an upwards bullish trend in Palantir all the way from November of 2024, right when I started my channel, September of 2024. So we watched this entire trend up. And then this last year, we have broken out of trend. And now things are looking terribly ugly. We have been shot in terms of the candlestick chart, seeing a death cross here. We are falling there. We are falling on the relative strength index and on the MACD. So we are falling in terms of all those technical indicators, opportunity to possibly go lower. This is one interesting thing. Let's see if in the mix of all the Truth Social posts, if I could find it, but for the first time ever, the president actually talked about an individual ticker, which was Palantir. So let's just remember with Palantir, you know, here in the short term, things are looking very ugly for the markets in general. The technical analysis is looking ugly, but overall, Palantir still looking very bullish. I mean, when we do look at their actual earnings, let's pull up Palantir here. Palantir has constant accelerating earnings, and so there is no doubt the growth that has been going on with Palantir. They have a great earnings. They make a ton in revenue, and this company is favored by the U.S. government. They are in bed with the U.S. government to the point where our president is talking about Palantir. He just put this out on Truth Social on Friday. Palantir Technologies, he even threw in the ticker there. PLTR has proven to have great war fighting capabilities and equipment. Just ask our enemy's president, DJT. Absolutely wild to see that the president is tweeting out about a ticker symbol right there. Michael Burry says Anthropic is eating Palantir's lunch. Alex Karp is the devil. I am not a fan of Michael Burry. You say Barry, I think you mean Michael Burry. Let me get a drink of this coffee. I hope you all like coffee too. If you have a favorite type of coffee, let me know. I like mochas. I am addicted to chocolate, so I love mochas. So that is what I'm drinking in this, is a mocha. Sam Altman has some serious personality problems. Sam Altman is a butt slammer. Oh, man, you guys are getting me to crack up, too. You are so funny. Peter Thiel, yeah, Peter Thiel seems to be a pretty evil guy, to be honest with you. Peter Thiel is the Silent of the Lambs vibes. Puts the lotion on its skin or else it goes back in the hole again. Oh my God, that was funny too. I think Tom Lee is so stinking adorable. I want to. Oh my God, you guys are so funny. Norris, great to see you here in the live stream once again. I want to brush his hair and eyebrows. Wow, that is something else. You could, looks like you're a bit into Tom Lee for other reasons other than the financial market. 96.20 for a barrel. Also, I wanted to show, I got some more memes here. So while we are laughing here, I thought this was funny right here. The old classic meme, the old man giving the thumbs up. When you get a 3% raise, but inflation is 5.4%, scratch that. 6.2, scratch that. 6.8, scratch that. 7%, scratch that. 7.5%, and he's given the thumbs up. And this is why, the Federal Reserve's preferred measurement of inflation is the PCE index and not the CPI, because the PCE does strip out food and energy. So of course, that's their favorite measurement of inflation. But we got to always remember that everything we see from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, all of those numbers are always cooked and never truly honest. So this picture sums it up perfectly, because many people aren't even really getting a 3% raise. And let's be honest, inflation has probably been more than 7.5% these last years. But the government has been reporting it like, oh, it's just barely above the Fed's, inflation target of 2%. Absolute BS. That is not the truth. And that is really why I started this channel and why I am so into the markets and so focused on the markets, because as investors, as traders, as speculators, not only are we always trying to grow our money, not only are we always trying to actually get more, more numbers, a higher nominal value, but really we have to do this. This is why I think it is so important to be in the financial markets, to learn more, to really study these markets, to try to just better ourselves. Because when we talk about inflation, well, we are always fighting against inflation. This is the fight against the Federal Reserve, against inflation, against the government, against this monetary supply constantly being messed with and seeing constant inflation. So really now more than ever, it is really important to be in assets, to trade equities, and to be aware of the markets, to be aware of your money, because man, inflation is absolutely crazy and things have only been roaring higher throughout the years. And we may be going into a time of stagflation, especially with everything that we are now seeing with the rising energy costs and a Federal Reserve which already did not want to cut rates, which the economy was already suffering because of these slightly higher rates. Again, the federal funds rate is basically nothing. I mean, when you look back to 1980, when Paul Volcker sent rates way up, way soaring up to that, double digit, close to 20% mark. It's like if the Federal Reserve did that right now, they would cause an absolute collapse. And so, something I've talked about on this channel for a long time, basically since the start of this channel with 2024, is the government and the Federal Reserve are always going to try to kick the can down the road. And if there is an immediate crisis in front of us, they are going to try to avert that and kind of like Keynesian economics, try to push that out way further into the future, push those problems onto our children. And the whole thought is, everything is about right now. Let's get the most pleasure out of right now. Let's worry about the problems and push those into the future, because the future doesn't matter and these problems will be solved by them. At least that's what the government and the Federal Reserve tries to do, right? They try to just continue to kick the can down the road. But now when we get something, unexpected happen, like we've seen with this war out in Iran, this is where kicking the can down the road can create some real consequences. So we'll see, this is where I say we may eventually, maybe even sooner than later, see a Fed put in the markets, or a Powell put, or a Warsh put, once he does take the place of Jerome Powell. And we may start to see some serious QE. We'll see the Federal Reserve really start to do some crazy things when it comes to the money printers, drop the rates, buy a bunch of short-term bonds, and really try to stimulate the markets and spending. But until that point, again, I've been saying this since the last FOMC meeting. Until that point, I right now am not too bullish on the markets. I believe there's still a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air. And I think things could get even worse leading up to the next FOMC meeting in 16 days. And unless we see some type of reversal with how the Fed is feeling, again, at this last meeting, Jerome Powell was pretty hawkish overall. And things have only gotten worse since since that point, the data has only gotten worse. We've seen some high inflation numbers. We've seen some cooked labor market numbers, but again, those are always cooked. But right now, the Fed not looking like they are going to cut rates, and the markets always react with a knee-jerk reaction to the downside if the Fed is not dovish. So I could see things continuing to get worse. And, I am just looking at the next 16 days leading up to the next FOMC meeting. Let's see in 16 days if the Fed feels any different. But really, I am not expecting that here in the short term. Again, we are kind of like back in 2020. We are seeing some crazy things happen with the world, seeing some real some bottlenecks, some supply and demand, some supply chain bottlenecks. That's the word I'm looking for. Some supply chain bottlenecks happen right now because of everything happening with the Strait of Hormuz and oil. So we could definitely see that continue. And if we do continue to see some problems, we do see things get worse, maybe we will eventually see that Fed put, but I am not expecting it at the next meeting in 16 days. Zuckerberg, definitely. I'm glad I live in a 2024 Peterbilt. Short Palantir to 100, not the worst move. Again, two wheels pursuit. I have some short-term puts on Robinhood, on Applied Digital, and also on QBTS. And so for these small caps around technology, AI, even Robinhood, I really like the stock of Robinhood. Again, I am not counting out the bears right now. I definitely think that we could go lower. And when we do look at Palantir, this is a play that could definitely continue to be shorted. When we do look at Palantir in terms of the fundamentals here, it does have a price to earnings at 170. So the PTE has actually came down significantly, but still elevated very high with a PTE at 170 and a price to sales at 68. You really ideally want to see a PTE right around 10 to 20. 25 could be seen as being a bit elevated, and then a price to sales right around like 3 to 5. And we have a P to S at 68, a PTE at 170. So technically, in terms of the price to earnings and the price to sales, this stock is still a bit overpriced. That is a big reason why I decided to do a little bit of a short on Applied Digital, because look at their PTE right now at 875, a price to sales at 21. So looking pretty overextended in terms of the PTE and P to S. And what I will say about price to earnings, price to sales, or just, how we value different companies fundamentally, when things are bullish, when the macros are looking positive, PTE, P to S, all of that doesn't really matter as much, because investors are investing into the growth of these growth companies, investing for the future. But right now, we have seen a lot of long-term expectations get shot, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air. And once you do get a lot of FUD in the air, this is when these indicators like price to earnings, all of that, the markets can be a lot more sensitive to. And, so right now, while we are a bit overextended on these plays, I don't think it is the worst idea. When you're sliding into first and you really got a burst, that is funny, Norris. French roast. Hey, I like that. Let's take another drink of the coffee, because Eric's talking about French roast. I do like French roast as well. I'm just a big fan of coffee overall. Nothing lasts forever. Buying the dips on Monday. Hey, that's a good mindset there. Uncompromised one. Again, the markets are of complete variance, and so anything can happen. It's like, even though the macros right now are looking ugly, we could continue to see a shoe up and even get back to all-time highs on the S&P and the triple Qs. There would be a lot that would be pissed off by that, but a lot were pissed off when we got this major rally all the way to where we are at right now. Some were even calling this the most hated V recovery of all time, because when we do look at this time period, so many were saying that the markets were way overvalued, that the tariffs were going to ruin the world. Avocados were going to go to $1 million per avocado. And then we just saw the markets shoot absolutely euphoric. And with what you're saying there, uncompromised one, I gotta say, I'm not like, I'm not, I can't predict the future. I'm not saying that by any means, but I did buy the dips around this time period. And I mean, it provided me the best year I have ever had. 2025 was my best year ever in terms of performance. I ran this entire run up. It was absolutely amazing. And it was because of what you are saying right there, uncompromised one. And I do like the short side of the market. Again, if you followed me throughout my videos, I've mentioned this many times, but I did some shorting back in 2021 and 2022, I think it was, and it started off amazing. I actually had some massive green candlesticks while the markets were draining. I felt euphoric, amazing, all of that. But one thing that happened was I failed to close my shorts. I lost all of my profits, even ended up a bit into the negative. So for many years, I stayed away from shorting, but now with what we have most recently seen, I am playing with some shorting in the short term, but I also have my long-term portfolio, and I still do have a lot of longs on the market, and I absolutely agree with you. So again, with everything I am saying, guys, don't take it like I am a bear forever. Don't think that I think that the markets are going to drop forever. I don't think that Bitcoin's going to zero. I don't think that the SPY is going to go all the way down to 300. I just think here in the short term, while the macros are so ugly, we could continue to see a sell-off because of all the geopolitical tension that is going on right now, and with what we have recently seen with inflation. But again, this also may have just been an oversold reversal that we saw most recently. And again, this could piss off a lot of the macro guys, as there is possibility that we do push higher. But again, oil here in the futures market pushing up, while the major indexes have pushed down. Let's see, in the overnight, we have started to get some consolidation here, but overall still looking very ugly there. Stephanie says, smart. I'm adding on Monday for sure. Bitcoin starting to rebound. Let's take a look here at Bitcoin again real quick. And if there's any tickers that you guys want to see, let me know. We could do a full out analysis on everything. We already went through what we expect for this upcoming week. So in terms of earnings, we have the banks reporting. We could get some fear, uncertainty, and doubt around that. We have the producer inflation numbers this week. So we do have that. And again, the market's feeling a lot of fear right now with everything going on out in the Middle East, but that is not to say that we can't potentially run higher. And again, I am just an honest guy, so I'm not going to tell you I have a crystal ball and I can tell you what will happen next. Again, right now we are in a spot of unpredictability. Anything can happen next. I have some longs in the market, my long-term portfolio. I have bought the dips on some different plays, and then in another portfolio, I am doing some shorting and experimenting with some trading. So we'll just have to see. Happy birthday, uncompromised one. You going to learn today. Short private credit, long crypto. It's 420. Oh, that's your birthday. Awesome, my friend. Well, I hope you are celebrating on that day. Puff, puff, pass. Looks like we got some smokers here in the chat. That's cool, everyone. Uncomp getting close. PDT rule change vote 14th. By the way, I think this is the first time I've ever seen you here. So thanks for joining us here on the live. We do this every single Sunday, 30 minutes before the overnight session opens up. So the first about 20 minutes for this live stream was dedicated to everything we could expect for this upcoming week. We looked at the earnings calendar, the economic calendar, and just everything that is happening right now. Then we saw the overnight open up, and now we're just kind of opening up the chat and having some fun here. But thank you for joining us. You say that the PDT rule change vote the 14th, May 29th, 2K day trading. I'm excited and glad to see you doing live stream. I always watch your videos. Oh, okay. Well, hey, that is awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for the support with all my videos. Again, I am doing this every single Sunday. I've also been going live for some earnings reports as well. So I absolutely love going live, and I appreciate all the support. And that will be exciting if we do see that PDT rule get changed. I know for myself, when it does come to that $25,000 mark, it's created a lot of psychological issues in me. When I was under that mark, it's like, what I really hate about the PDT rule is, they say it's to protect investors, right? They're saying they're protecting the small guy because they don't want him to overtrade. But really, I call BS on that because, I think so often the PDT trading rule actually does hurt investors' mindsets, because what happens when you are under 25K, say you just placed a great day trade, right? You could be running up towards the upside, but maybe you don't close it because of that rule. Or maybe you even get locked out because you've already placed your 3 out of 5, you've already placed your 3 trades out of the 5-day period, and now you can't, and now you see the play reverse. So what I really hate about it is it's like, I love doing some day trading, although I'm still trying to hone on to my day trading abilities, trying to get better above that 25K mark. It's so liberating to be able to trade an unlimited amount of times. It really is. I could totally understand being under that mark, and I do hope that does get passed, because again, it's just, to me, it shoots investor psychology. It really ruins investors' thoughts, because if you just want to make a quick profit, you may second guess just because of that rule. And again, things, there's a difference between trades and investments, and it could turn a trade into an investment. And then you could see that overnight, you could see rolling into the next day, you could see blood within the markets. And it's like, you could have had a profit that you could have taken if it wasn't for PDT. You didn't do it, and now the markets trail off. So yeah, let's definitely hope. I agree with you on that one. Got some emojis. Trevor needs a girlfriend. Let's see, girlfriend. You guys are so funny. Trevor will never give up his love at Green Money Momentum. I agree. Green Money Momentum is my love right there. You guys are so funny, by the way. Oklo, Rocket Lab, IonQ pumping. Oh, are they? Let's take a look here. Let's see how Rocket Lab is doing. What do you guys think about Artemis recently? That was very interesting, huh? Let's take a look at Rocket Lab corporations. Rocket Lab, at least right now, it is not looking like it's going up for me. Down by 1.87%. And if QBTS started in the red, I think IonQ probably, yeah, as I would guess, in the red as well. The quantum sector is very correlated. QBTS back to 1406, so getting a little bit of a push there in QBTS. Nobody needs a girlfriend, Norris. No, we need a wife, right? We need a long-term partner. Woot woot. Eric, what's up with Big Bear AI? China sending air defense to Iran. Are you guys going to buy SpaceX? This is a great question here. Now, when it comes to the SpaceX IPO that is supposed to release like sometime this year, I believe it's going to be in the summer, a very interesting one. Apparently, this is going to open up at $1 trillion on the market cap. So an IPO at $1 trillion, incredible. I personally believe with the initial public offering, I will trade it. I am not going to invest into SpaceX initially. What I personally believe is going to happen, there is a lot of anticipation for this IPO, a lot that are looking at this IPO. And I do believe that, there could be a long drawdown, crushing a lot of the enthusiastic investors who are having a lot of fear of missing out with SpaceX. So I'll just say this. I don't have any fear of missing out with SpaceX. Objectively, if there's a lot of hot momentum when it does initially IPO, I will trade it. But I'm also not going to fade the bears in the scenario, especially with such a large market cap all the way at 1 trillion, that we could just get an initial bleed off on SpaceX. Now, for the long term, probably bullish, but in the short term, I could see SpaceX disappointing a lot of investors in the short term, but we'll just have to see. Yep, I stay away from the space race. I agree with you, Two Wheels. I've said many times, when it comes to space stocks, when it comes to Rocket Lab or all the others, SpaceX, space is, and it's, what do they say? Space is a frontier and Hollywood is the final bit. What the heck is that? I'm going to look up that quote. Space is the frontier, but it's in a Hollywood. Okay, here's what it is. It's from that song you guys probably know, Californication. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. So with that being said, with space, it's like they could say they're doing a ton of different things and we don't really know, but what we do know about space and space travel and space exploration in that sector is there is a lot of money associated with it. They're always trying to pull in a bunch of capital. NASA takes so much funding, SpaceX, the same to be said. And really, we don't really know everything that is going on. Again, it's like even with Artemis most recently, I'm not saying they did or did not go into space. It's like, it's so funny. We have such a 50-50 on the internet. Some believe in space travel. Others really don't believe in it at all. I'm not going to lie and say I know either side of the coin. Maybe what we see from NASA is legit, or maybe they really are not a space agency. Who really could know? You really only know if you are really there. So when it does come to space travel, I agree with you. Also, Two Wheels Pursuit. I am not currently, investing into any space companies or anything like that. And that is because what I invest into, I like to see the real world results of that. Like I like Big Bear AI because we really do see them at the airports. I like Robinhood stock because Robinhood is a very popular app that is only continuing to grow with their banking side of things. I like quantum computing. Because, well, I guess even quantum could be seen a little bit like space travel, but I do believe in quantum. And, they do have all the quantum conferences, and quantum computers are real and you can really go and see them. I do like Tesla, though. Let's take a look here at Tesla because Tesla has been being shot here in the short term. Tesla looking quite ugly in terms of technical analysis. I got to say, I am very thankful with how I traded Tesla this last year in 2025. So I actually got into Tesla. Like where was I at? I was at some point in Tesla, and I got in at the top. Honestly, I had a terrible buy in Tesla, and then I watched a lot of bleeding, and I ended up, getting out of most of my trade at the top again for just a small profit. But Tesla has really bled in the short term, really on a downward cycle. Also, we may be seeing that death cross here while the candlestick chart is dropping and while the other technicals of the relative strength index and the MACD are looking pretty flat and ugly, and SpaceX price is going to be too high. I absolutely agree with you, Eric. If anything, I think when SpaceX initially does have the initial public offering, possibly doing some shorting in SpaceX may be the way to go. Maybe doing like a put on SpaceX, because again, so many retail investors are super hyped about SpaceX, and I think that, again, at a market cap so high, all the way at $1 trillion already, again, with expectations being so high. And again, for the IPO, the initial public offering to be all the way at $1 trillion, you got to think about the private offerings and all the investors that are in it right now that are going to possibly be using the retail investors as their exit liquidity. And then Clear is killing it. It's definitely a buy right now. Big Bear. I stay in the small caps. I also agree with you, Eric. I like the small caps as well. That's mainly what I have focused on the entire term of this channel. Now, again, transparently here in the short term, I am not opposed to fading some of the small caps, to doing some short-term shorting on these small caps, because in 2025 we had some euphoric runs in many of the different small caps, and I'm not expecting for the small caps to have bullish momentum while the overall markets are having such bearish momentum. I mean, even when we look at the largest company of them all in terms of market cap, NVIDIA right now, even at a spot where things are a bit unpredictable, recently followed falling under the 200 and the 50-day MA. And now look at this spot that we are sitting at on NVIDIA. Such an interesting spot. We may be seeing that death cross possibly, or we may see that reversal and continue to shoot higher. Again, it's going to be very interesting to see how the markets actually do open up tomorrow, but a lot of the Mag 7 names are even looking weak here in the short term. So when we do look at the small caps in the short term, if the Mag 7 stocks are not looking bullish, I am not expecting too much bullish momentum for the small caps, but I am a big fan of small caps. And eventually, and again, in my belief, and anything can happen, and I could be totally wrong here, but in my belief, I do believe we're going to see more bleeding in most of the small caps here in the short term. But what I love about this is all of these small caps are going to present amazing dip buying opportunities once we see the overall markets shoot to be more bullish. So once we see more bullish momentum in the major index, in the Mag 7 across the entire markets, maybe see some of this geopolitical tension start to ease, I do believe that the small caps can provide tremendous return on investment, especially in the options market, which I am mainly in. I love options, and that's why recently I just did puts for the first time. It's like I did a lot of bullish calls in 2025 on small caps, saw euphoric return on investment, but then we've seen some hard chops here in the short term. And now just most recently, I did do a put on Robinhood, on Applied Digital, and on QBTS. And again, these are just small trades. So I still have my long-term portfolio. I still believe, especially in this play right here, this blue chip of Robinhood. And again, we may be closer to the bottom than the top, but if we do see more of a bleed, especially if the markets do fade this rally that happened most recently with this gap being opened up on the S&P and the triple Qs, I could see even more bleeding in the overall market. And I want to take some advantage of that. Small caps, definitely a great buy at these moments, super cheap. What is the clear ticker? I'm a permable. Agreed with you there, two wheels. You know, the markets are a mechanism that is made to go up, really, and the Federal Reserve and the government are really not going to allow the markets to get shot too hard. So again, my puts that I have, they're very short-term puts. They expire on 4/24. I hope that they print, but if they don't, I will also be happy because then my long-term portfolio will be rising. So they are just a bit of a hedge against what we are seeing most recently. Playing with your shorts make you go blind. Bitcoin to 100K. Neximus, great to see you here in the live chat. We haven't seen you here for a couple of our different live streams, but I know you've been a long-time subscriber of this channel, so great to see you here once again. So Neximus believes that Bitcoin is going to go back to 100K. Look at Blue Owl. What do you think about shorting? Well, I know that this is private credit, Stephanie, and we were just talking about earlier, the banks are going to be reporting earnings this upcoming week. And so, of course, these are not private credit. These are the banks. These are the bigger credit suppliers, the bigger, where you could loan and all that. Public, gosh, man, I'm getting messed up here. Public, what the hell am I looking for? This is embarrassing. Private capital versus public capital. So, all these banks, there's some restrictions when it comes to loaning after the 2008 financial crisis. But when it comes to private credit, a lot of those restrictions aren't there. And there's a lot of stress happening with private credit. I mean, when we do look at the chart here for Blue Owl, and there's some other ones here. We have Apollo and a couple others when it comes to private credit. Again, looking pretty ugly. And now that the macros are looking ugly, I mean, the trend is your friend. So I could definitely see this continuing with Blue Owl. I opened up a small position on Owl at 85. Did you open up a small position with it shorting, or like you say, two wheels, you're a permabull, so you do expect it to go back up? Can you check LMT? I'm feeling bullish. Let's take a look here at, Lockheed Martin. Okay, yeah, I mean, again, we are at a time where, the war stocks are a lot more bullish than a lot of other things right now. So not looking bad. In terms of technical analysis for Lockheed Martin, it is right now currently under the 50-day moving average, but well above the 200-day moving average, falling on the relative strength index. And then possibly we may be seeing a bullish cross on the MACD. Let me take that off screen there. So we may be seeing a bullish cross on the MACD. And again, it doesn't look like here in the short term, the war is going to be resolved anytime soon. I don't short. Hey, I don't blame you for that. Again, when it comes to my story of shorting, I did not do it for many years. And, I'm just doing some short-term shorting. So it would be great to see a reversal on these markets, to see the oversold reversal, and to see everything shoot back up. But again, Eric, I'm just looking at everything objectively here. When I talk about shorting, I'm definitely not saying I'm long-term shorting. I'm not like investing into the short side. That would definitely be foolish. No, I am just doing some short-term shorting, doing some trading towards the short term, kind of working as a hedge against what we have seen most recently. Happy birthday. Hi, Norris. Glad to see you again. Always great to see you guys. Say hi to each other. Person turquoise waving speech. Gay bear. What's up? What's up? I don't know nothing about shorting, but my papa said it's like stealing money from a baby. Well, again, I did some shorting back in 2022. I was successful until I failed to close my shorts. So if you are going to short, always just be aware of the reversal. Again, like we were talking earlier about Coachella. Right now, the world looks like it's in a panic. It looks like the world is, like shutting down. We're seeing a crazy crisis in energy. We are seeing the stock market get shot most recently, and many are bearish, thinking that it is the end of the world. And I'm not saying that the markets can't get worse in the short term, but remember to always have an objective point of view and just to think about all perspectives, because while so many are feeling like this is the end of the world and everything is going to absolutely nothing, there are others that are willing to spend thousands of dollars to go party and dance out at Coachella. But yeah, stealing money from a baby. I mean, I could definitely see that. I mean, one thing that, like I say, upsets me personally in terms of my own trading performance. I did have a lot of run up in 2025. I caught so much ROI, especially from the options that I was doing in 2025. But then, even though I took a lot of profits on the way up, I did not even consider really shorting. And we were talking about the markets like during all of this time. I've been doing daily videos, all the way back since 2024. So many technicals, like many of the different plays were starting to look overextended. And like, for example, here on the S&P, I remember this time period right here, we were just getting into the government shutdown. And then we saw what could be considered as bull exhaustion, where we saw these massive gaps here. Now, the major indexes did continue to go sideways, but when we got this bull exhaustion, when the macros started to look a bit more shaky, a lot of plays started to get chopped off. And like when we look at Palantir, for example, although I did close on some bullish trades, I still have some long-term investments. I didn't even really consider shorting the markets. But like you're saying, stealing candy from a baby, anybody that took advantage of these plays when they were looking overextended on the relative strength index, looking overextended on the MACD, looking overextended in terms of actual candlesticks, a lot of money to be made. Hi, Sean. Girlfriends are a scam. You guys are so funny. There's a lot of you talking about the girlfriend situation here in the live chat. So great to see that so many of you are interested in my dating life there. That is so funny. I would not say that they are a scam. I would say some could be a scam. Above anything, a partner, a girlfriend is an investment. Will this investment be a malinvestment, or is this investment going to provide some real ROI? You got to look at the cost costs associated. A girlfriend costs money and time, but is that investment worth it for your future? Will they provide a future that you want? If they don't, then maybe you want to get out of that play. I'm going to be super honest with you, Guy. You sound like you are a homosexual. Definitely not. Are you open in a polygamous relationship? Wow, wild things dirty. That is some crazy comments that you got right there. Eric, it's under you. Well, I am a woman, so sold my Rocket Lab, bought small position in PL. Chris on the mom. Great to see you here. Planet Labs. Let's take a look here at Planet Labs. Overall, looking pretty bullish on a nice upwards trend. I agree with you there. Space is the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Man, I must be way behind on this live chat. You guys have been providing a ton of entertainment for me today. So thank you to everybody who is here. We have had an awesome time with this live stream. I would say been very successful for today. The space in between your ears. Spend your time wisely. Satellites are definitely real. NASA, never a straight answer. Also could be seen as not a space agency. Eric, we got a weirdo on this feed. Who is that? Who's the weirdo, Norris? Could you please email me your list of stocks for May? Well, I'll be honest with you, Sean Stone. That's going to be some extra work, which I'm not really looking to do necessarily. But if you want to continue to tune in to the the daily videos I do and to these live streams, well, you could get my opinion and you could ask me about any individual ticker, just like the uncompromised one is asking here. What is your opinion on ORBS 8Co? Well, it is a penny stock. I don't know anything about this stock, but look at that dilution that has gone there. I'll just say I don't even really know what Orbs is, but red flags here, just looking at the technicals here, looking very ugly. Looks like there's been a lot of dilution with this play, probably some reverse splits. Anytime you see a play, which is like a penny stock, and you then look at the stock history and you see that at one point it was elevated at a much higher level, typically this means that there has been a lot of dilution in this play, a lot of shares offered, a lot of reverse splits, and a lot of what we are seeing here, pumps and dumps. And typically when plays are seeing movements like this and when they are under $1, a lot of the times these plays will have a problem staying listed on the markets, and many times they will do that reverse split just to put themselves back above that penny stock range. So I would not be surprised if this play right here does a RS sometimes and all of a sudden is worth $8. So I don't know what this company 8Co does, but again, I stay away from penny stocks. I like small caps. I like some micro caps. Those still have a lot of volatility associated with them. You know, a lot of dilution concerns even with small caps. But when we're talking about penny stocks, especially with a stock chart history looking like that, that is very ugly. And I see nothing but red flags and frustration. And I do definitely not want to be participating in that stock. Oh, Capricorn 1. I've watched that movie. Yeah, that is a funny movie, guys. If you've never watched Capricorn 1, you need to go watch that. Let's just look up Capricorn 1 really quick here. So this had O.J. Simpson. Yeah, this had O.J. Simpson. This movie is so goofy. This movie I actually just watched again, probably 6 months ago or a year ago. I watched it when I was a kid with my dad. I laughed my ass off, and I watched it again most recently as an adult. So funny, especially how this movie ends, because these guys are going out to space, right? And then what they get told is I think what happens is they don't actually end up going to space. They have to fake it, all of that. They are at this place out in the Nevada desert, somewhere like that. And then they make this great escape. And what makes this movie so goofy, you could see this right here. They get into to the desert at one point, and the government is trying to chase them so they don't get the truth out, that all of it was a hoax. But my favorite part, let's see, we're going to go to a commercial break here in a second anyway, because I just got to use the bathroom, get a quick drink of water. Let's see if we could pull up the classic Capricorn 1 scene when he is with the plane. Let's see. There's such a funny scene here. So ridiculous. I think it is this. Yeah, this to me, this is Okay, let this go through. But that's so funny that you bring this up. Yes, we'll show this. I'll go to my commercial break real quick. And then after that, we'll start to wrap up the stream. Again, we've had some great engagement today. So for everybody who has been a part of the stream, as always, I appreciate you for being here. But this is so funny because in this movie right here, so, you know, they are a part of this whole space scene. They are supposed to go out to Mars, I believe it is. And then before they are even set to launch out to space, all of the sudden, you know, some government officials take them out to a back room, tell them that the whole thing is fugazi. They aren't really going to space, but they need to lie to the public. Eventually, they break out of this confinement that they are in, and now they are at this point right here where they are going to a crop duster. This crop duster is supposed to fly them out to somewhere. And this is when they find the crop duster. Let me see if we could see the actual crop duster when he's fighting the government. Yeah, I think it's this one right here. This is so funny to me because it's so ridiculous because, well, I'll just show the clip for you guys, but it's just so funny. So they find this crop duster and he ends up being like the greatest pilot of all time, being able to escape some major military helicopters. So I'm going to run this clip right here. It's about 3 minutes. I will be right back, guys. I'm just going to go get a drink of water, use the restroom, and then I will be right back. But while I'm away from the screen, our first commercial break, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you've never watched the movie Capricorn 1, I definitely suggest that you go and watch it just for the comedy. So I will be right back. Everybody, see you all on the flip side of the commercial break. So yeah, that is all Iran has to do to beat the U.S. military right there. Just get a very talented crop duster, and that crop duster, if he's a talented enough pilot, he could defeat the U.S. military, just like we saw in that scene. But again, if you've never watched that movie Capricorn 1, I definitely suggest watching it just for the comedy aspect of it, because it really is such a funny scene there. Also, I wanted to show, I had some memes memes here just while we were on the topic of comedy. So I showed this earlier. When you get a 3% raise, but inflation is to the moon. The next one, childhood fear, the roller you don't want to get hit, and then the next one is the adulthood fear, which is the red candlestick. So I thought both of those were funny. Let's see if we got any other memes here. Are you winning, son? Yeah, thanks, Dad, for the tip. Dear Trump, please say Bitcoin. So what is your goal here? I hate to say this, but you guys are just going to bleed out your checking account and savings, then go in debt for years just for a small return. The life of a bag holder on a bad asset. You clearly don't understand why we are all here to watch Trevor just leave. Well, I appreciate that, Sean Stone. And I don't mind both opinions. Again, looking at everything objectively, you know, if there's someone in here who's a bear or who thinks that the markets are going to continue to trail down, you know, two wild things dirty, you are welcome to your opinion, as are you, Sean. But I appreciate you both for being here again. Never had a 68% run up, huh? Looks like Wild Things has some a little bit upset here in the chat. I got one word for you: compounding. Let's go. I'm glad to be back. Just went hunting at Ghana with my grandfather. Hey, that's great to hear that you're hunting with your grandfather. If you're hunting for your meat, you know, that's great that you're actually, you know, hunting and getting your meat instead of just buying what you get at the store. You know, we never know if what we see at the store is just 3D printed meat or whatever. What comes from Kroger and those other companies, who knows what the hell is in that meat. So Nextmas, great to hear that you're going out there and getting your meat the natural way, the hunter and gatherer way of doing things. Sounds like Wild Things is a sexually deprived bot. Okay, wow. We have some interesting things going on in the chat here. I'm going to start to close out some tabs here. Again, I appreciate every single one of you for being here. This has been a lot of fun. Another successful live stream here on a Sunday. Again, we always do this 30 minutes before the markets open. If you just joined us the first 30 minutes, we're talking about everything we could expect to see this upcoming week. We looked at the earnings calendar, the economic calendar. You know, right now the numbers are overall looking a bit ugly. So right now the bears are a bit more in control than the bulls. We looked at technical analysis. I did not touch on the fear and greed index, but I thought this was very interesting, by the way. On the fear and greed index, we were at levels of extreme fear, and all it took was that Truth Social post from the president to have such a crazy rally in the fear and greed index. So possibly, again, we may be seeing a fake out. I would not count out that we do see this gap get filled. You know, gaps are typically meant to be filled, but again, guys, anything can happen. I'm not going to tell you I have a crystal ball and I could, you know, predict the future. There is the possibility that this gap is the beginning. This is the right side of the V. Only time will tell. We were hoping. Okay, cool. I appreciate you, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you, my man. Thank you for being here again. Private equity doesn't lose money. Words of wisdom: the more you learn, the more you earn. Stephanie, I opened a long position at Owl. Penny stocks are for the uneducated. Well, I mean, you know, there is, I would say, I wouldn't say the uneducated. I would just say it's a very volatile sector of the market. So if you're going to be in penny stocks, you know, probably treat them as a trade more than an investment. I mean, if you catch a penny stock at the bottom, if you catch something in the pennies and it runs up to crazy dollars, I mean, sheesh. I mean, you know, the small cap that we looked at QBTS, that was in the penny stock range at one point. That ran all the way up to 45 at one point. So, I mean, look at where QBTS was back in the day. It was at that 80, 90 cent range. So I would not say that someone would be uneducated if they made a long-term investment there and ran it up 3,000% in 2025. But also, this is a case scenario where something that was a penny showed to have some real value. Again, the quantum sector has some real valuable technology, which may play a big role in our futures. We've had a crazy run up. All these quantum companies did crazy things in 2025. But what I will say with the penny stock sector of the markets, it can hurt the uneducated if they really are getting into very diluted plays that have had a lot of reverse splits, basically stocks that really hate their shareholders and are looking to just bleed them dry. So if you are going to be involved in penny stocks, I would say to be educated, to give yourself as much education as possible, and just know that if you are going to play in that sector of the markets, a very volatile one. I saw that in the movie theaters. I'm glad the movie is getting the recognition it deserves. All right, Neximus, it sounds like you are an old timer. Silver dumping. Good call, Two Wheels. We're going to get through the chat here. I sold all my silver back in 08. Okay, cool. I can't believe it's popular to new investors. Well, like I say, my favorite sector of the market is around the small caps, also with technology, because when we really see a lot of quantitative easing and when the markets are overall more bullish than bearish, when things are positive, we will really see technology have some of the most euphoric ROI. And so I love technology for the volatility, also because like, for example, AI, that's technology. These innovations are really set to change our lives. And when we really do look at technology investments over the last 30 years, a lot of it is it's the reason why we're here right now. You watching me on YouTube, this is technology, investments within computing, with webcams, with technology, with the internet boom. You go back in time and technology is one of the best sectors, in my opinion, to invest into. And I really love small caps as well. When it comes to the hard metals, I do, there are a lot of new investors and a lot of investors right now that are looking at the hard metals, especially after the recent euphoric ROI, the recent euphoric movements that we have seen in silver and gold, but also, if you are expecting some super quick returns in these hard metals, just know that what most recently happened is not always a common case scenario. Silver really sat in a sideways channel for so much time. Now, there was a boost back in 2011. It does have its pops here and there, but, a lot of the times the hard metals can be very flat. But there are good reasons to invest in the hard metals. One is a hedge against the currency crisis. The others is because of the actual utility in hard metals. They do typically hold their value over time, but it is for sure not going to provide you the craziest return on investment in just a short amount of time like the small caps or technology will do. Silver and gold are bankers' scams. Never had a real investment, like real estate or passive income businesses. I got meat for you, bear market baby. Tim Sykes is very knowledgeable with penny stocks and Jack Kellogg. Good night, everyone. Hope is well. Norris and Trevor, well, thank you, Neximus. Have a good night. I'm also going to be signing out here in a second. Night. Good night, Neximus. And don't eat the hyena meat. LOL. By the way, I really like your picture there. I like the snake that you have, and it looks like he's like on a dollar bill. That's pretty cool. And again, Sean, great to see you here in the live stream. We do this every Sunday again. Night, Sean. And try and be more cheerful. Wild thing. Yeah, wild thing a bit here, negative, but that's okay. And then I know positivity goes a long way. You learn more with an open mind. Okay, I finally caught up to the live chat, guys. This has been one of the most successful streams that we have ever had on this channel. There has been so much engagement, and I've been having so much fun today. So for all of you who participated in today's live stream, I greatly appreciate every single one of you for being here. And Sean says the same thing. I appreciate you as always. I can't wait for the next one. Well, thank you again for being here. And yeah, we're about to wrap up here. So I'm going to close some tabs. If there's anything you guys want to say before we sign out, put it in the comments. Speak now or forever hold your silence, as they say, right? But But overall, we got a ton of engagement. And I say this quite often, but to everybody who is here, to the 5 of you who are here, to everybody who was here earlier, we are still a small channel. Green Money Momentum is still growing. And this to me is a trading journal. So I started this back in 2024. It's a trading journal for myself. I am always trying to improve because I do believe that the more you learn, the more you earn. So I'm always reading a ton of different financial books, studying the markets. But also what I love about this channel is it's not only a trading journal for myself, but also we have a Green Money Momentum community here, and it's all of your engagement. It's all of you, commenting that keeps this channel going. Because I got to be honest here, in the short term, in terms of actual growth with YouTube, I have been growing very slowly. I had a lot of subscriber growth in 2025, but of course the markets recently have been a bit bearish and many investors have been tapped out. But for all of you who are here, the loyal subscribers of this channel, you are keeping this going. And, even though I'm not getting a lot of new subscribers seeing me, it is positive to have your engagement, your likes, your comments, your views, because it shows YouTube that there is still an audience that appreciates this content. And ideally, all I want to do with this channel is to continue to grow myself as an investor and also grow the community that we have here on YouTube. I love seeing all the engagement here, and this to me is just passion for me. So I am truly being genuine with this. That's why I'm not asking you guys for any money. I'm not telling you to sign up for any courses, anything like that. There is a lot of selling going on with YouTube, which is not bad. I understand it. I put a lot of time into this channel. And again, YouTube doesn't even pay me like $50 a month to do this. So the actual money earned from this channel is very low, but I do this as a passion. So for all of those that do sell courses, everything like that, I completely understand why they do that if they treat this as their business. But I do have a business outside of this channel. And overall, this is just a passion of mine. And I absolutely love doing this. And to be able to come on here every single Sunday and to do a live stream and then to do videos and have all of you who do participate, engaging in the comment section, all of that, truly from the bottom of my heart, I truly thank every single one of you. I feel absolutely blessed to be here. What a time to be alive. This is so much fun. I've been doing YouTube since a kid, by the way. So I've been doing YouTube since I was about 10 years old. I had YouTube channels like this back in the day where I was talking. I even went live back in the day. And it was like, it wasn't on YouTube. There wasn't YouTube Live at the time, but it was like some other website. So I've been doing this for many, many years. I'm very passionate about this, and it's so exciting to, throw finance and my love for YouTube together and to see that it is actually helping other investors and traders here on YouTube. So thank you to all who are here. Once again, you are keeping this channel going, and this is truly a dream come true. Night Norris, Night Two Wheels, Night Eric, Night Steph, and thank you. Without you, I'd be negative 500%. Well, hey, that's awesome to hear that I've helped you have some good performance on the market. Well, same to all of you. I've gotten some great suggestions for different tickers from all of you, and that's really helpful. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. You've all wished each other good night. I'm going to now wish you a good night. We got a little bit of daylight here left here in Arizona. Maybe I'll try to find something fun to do here in the last minutes of the day. But thank you as all so much for being here. I would say this is the most successful live that we have had here on YouTube. If you didn't already, hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed to the channel. Thank you all so much, and I will see you all in the next daily talk of stock or in the next live stream. But I should be doing a video tomorrow, so I'll likely see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.